start. We are a little bit later than what we had hoped. There's a couple of people I know they're still on their way, but it's wonderful for you to be here and to complete your registration. That's great. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Tonight is really the night for the Vice Commodore Brent and for the race officer Ray here, so they will take you through the the sailing instructions page by page. So be patient. But just a couple of things. You all collected a number, right? The skippers, you all collected a number. Make sure that you bring that number to the prize giving, because that number will entitle you to a prize, right? No ticket, no prize. You, presumably for all of you, you've got your bag and your polo.
Yep.
All right. So, race officer Ray.
I'm not going to go through the race instructions line by line. He was joking, I hope. You have them, and I understand you can all read, or have somebody on board can read. So what I will do is take you through the exceptions, and so that I didn't forget them, I wrote them down on a piece of paper myself. This race is different to many races. As far as a race officer is concerned, there's more responsibilities, because a lot of people, there will be over 100 people out on the water for 24 hours, and that becomes the chickens that we have to make sure we bring home. And of course I can't do it alone, so in fact race officer is in fact 6 people in teams of 2. There's myself and my wife Cheryl, there's Lynn Porter and Richard Davies, and Wendy Edwards and Liz Davies. So we'll be doing 4-hour shifts around. I will be available either at the club here, sleeping in a sleeping bag, or at home if the weather looks fine. And everybody will have my own personal cell phone number as well as the race officer cell number, which we will give you, and you'll find is already in the race instructions. And I'll mention that again a little later. For those who are interested, the first view of the weather Saturday week is for 8 to 10 knots for both days. I think that Teo has sold his soul to somebody because he's managed to order up another light breeze and breeze that I can feel comfortable with you out there. Okay, the first rule I want you to bring to your attention is rule number 1. In rule 1 in your sailing instructions, which is that during the hours of darkness, life jackets on the deck are compulsory. That's kind of important for us. We also, you'll notice in the sailing instructions, a rather convoluted clause that says that life jackets on the deck in daylight are also compulsory, except that it says unless released by the skipper. In other words, the skipper of each boat may actually allow people not, during the daylight hours, not to wear life jackets. It's that person's call. However, of course, conditions might be such that we decide we're sailing under Y flag, and if we do that, then indeed what we'll do is we'll text to all the boats and we'll VHF to all the boats that Y flag, you're sailing under Y flag, and under that condition the skipper's ability to say no to life jackets, wearing of life jackets during daylight hours is overridden. So the next point I want to bring to is the notice board, because that's always right up front there in sailing instructions, and the official notice board is in the Lowry room on the right hand side. So any notices about the race and everything else will be on that notice. It's always important that we point out exactly where the official notice board is. Rule 5.3 is quite an interesting one. It's about a delayed start. When might we use a delayed start? I suppose the only twice we would use it is perhaps in extremely light conditions, although we didn't last year. And of course the mayor's there, and in this case it'll be the deputy mayor will be there trying to fire the cannon, and we'd like to be starting on time at 12 o'clock. If we haven't for any reason started by 1800 hours on the Saturday, the race will not start till the following weekend. It will be postponed unless we can get the race started by 1800 hours. Because under a delayed start, we'll be running less than 24 anyway, and we decided that less than 18 probably wasn't what we were looking for. So there's also Rule 5.4, which is about pausing a race. And it says in Rule 13.4 that we can only do this once. So the conditions where we might pause a race probably again won't be because the conditions are light. We'll probably leave you sailing around even if it's light. But we may pause a race if conditions got to the point that we're uncomfortable, we weren't comfortable. Boats may or may not be comfortable, but it'll be our call whether a race is paused or not. If we decide to pause a race, we would advise that in advance, doing a countdown, etc., by VHF and text. Now I keep talking about text and VHF. We want to give people the option, except to use the text. We have a dedicated cell phone number, which is in the sailing instructions. The number is there, which we'll be texting out to all boats from time to time with messages, and that you can use instead of VHF to tell us about lap times, etc., which I'll cover in a minute. But you may use it with impunity. It is allowed under the sailing instructions to communicate where other people can't see the communication. Because normally, as you know, you cannot make communications which other people cannot see. So, but this phone you'll be using for text, and you may be using to text you, cannot be the phone that you're using for your Yachtbot app. And the reason for that is because the Yachtbot will run your phones down, and you really need to have them plugged in from the time you get on board and turn them on. Because if your phone gets too low, it possibly won't charge. The lower the phone gets, the harder it is to get it charged with the sort of draw that will come from that. So virtually the phone that Brent and Wendy have been setting up your Yachtbots on has to be plugged into a USB that you might have on your boat, and if you don't have one, then you'll need to have a power pack. Power packs really need to be reasonably substantial, about 600 milliamp hours, so Wendy tells me. Anything less than 600 milliamp hours possibly is just a toy. So I have seen them as big as 13,600 milliamp hours, which you can use to start your truck. So there is two exceptions where the text cannot be used. And one is, you'll see under Rule 11 that we want boats to check in with us before the start. In fact, the rule goes so far as to say that failing to check in prior to the start, you do not rank as a starter. I suppose it does mean you can start late within the 30 minutes, as long as before you cross the line you can, but certainly before you start you need to be checking in on us. The reason that's important is because we want to know that we are in communication with you. Another problem we had last year, and it's very reasonable, is in the middle of the night people were turning down their VHFs. Why? Because people were sleeping. So they might finish a lap and call into us and then say, they haven't acknowledged. We sometimes acknowledge, but people had their volume switch right down.
Ray, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
77 is boat to boat, isn't it?
77 is boat to boat, but it's more reliable than 62.
What happens if you're on the other side of Soames for a check-in?
So it works on 77, and if you're on the other side of Soames for a check-in, the only one would be a dawn or dusk sked, and the dawn and dusk sked I'll come to a little later. In other words, if we don't get you on the first round, we'll get you second round. If we don't get you then, we'll get you by text.
We have done tests.
We have done tests on 77. We haven't had any problem behind Soames at all.
Okay.
So it's a more powerful channel than 17. 77 is good, 62 is unreliable, it keeps dropping out. And a lot of it dropping out appears to be boats with small handheld VHFs can't hold the relay in on the duplex, and then the whole thing gets all cracked up. So that's why we tend not to use 62 these days when we're using small handheld VHFs. So prior to the start, to rank as a starter, we want you to call in to us. We'll be in the box obviously half an hour before the start. Call in and we'll acknowledge it. But what we'll also do is we'll actually send a text to all boats. And it would be nice, not compulsory, but it would be nice if you text us back, because that tells us we're in touch by a second method of communication. So boats need to have 2 phones on board, one with the app on, one which they're going to use to communicate with us and to receive communications from us. Our main thing is we want to know we're in touch with you. If your yacht, I understand from Brent that for almost every phone, phone can go to sleep and the yacht bot will still keep working, but you cannot turn them off. They won't work then. Is that right, Brent? So hopefully that's the case. So this second phone, Brent's obviously collecting the number on the phones that you're loading up with the yacht bot. On Saturday week, during the briefing, we want the number of the other phone you're going to use to communicate to us, and we'll put it in under your boat name, not your name. So quite clearly we can see who the text is coming from. If we get a text from you, we will always answer. Brent's got us a package on the phone that's got unlimited text, so we can reply to you without going over time, over budget. And so if you wanted to send your communication to us that you'd finished a lap, you could do so, and we would be able to say, yeah, gotcha. The other thing is where we should be seeing you finishing your lap as well, but it's nice to know that we're both getting the same time. We want to make sure that there is no gaps and no way to get a gap. Now, the race management mobile number is 0272 302 546, but it's in the sailing instructions twice, so that's why I read it very fast, in case I wrote it down wrong. So the start, even though the provision in the sailing instructions is we start from the wharf or from a boat, in fact, even though the wharf is closed, we've got permission from the council to open the wharf for a couple of hours. Just for this, but there'll be limited numbers of people who are able to go out on the wharf. Unfortunately.
So which wharf was this?
This is Larry Bay, the wharf just by the oil wharf.
Okay.
It's currently closed,
Okay.
but the council allowed it open. So under Rule 13.2, we talk about wind limitations, etc. Now you have to give us a bit of flexibility on this, because often it's not just about wind. Sometimes it's about sea conditions as well. And wind alone doesn't tell you the answer to that question. But nominally, the conditions when we might pause a race would be initiated when winds consistently exceed for longer than 10 minutes, very carefully chosen words. By day, northerly 30 knots and southerly 25 knots, and at night northerly 25 knots and southerly 20 knots. So we'll be monitoring that and perhaps asking people in certain positions we can see around the harbour to give us feedback before we make any decision. Then we'll make a decision. We'll give you a time for a pause, shutdown, etc. Now the pausing shutdown, for those who aren't familiar with it, is the same as the finish. If we say we're shutting down in 5 minutes, we'll give you a countdown, we'll give you a countdown. At that moment, you take your GPS position, degrees, minutes, and decimals of a minute, please, which is what's specified, and you return to the marina. The sailing instructions also require, on the case of a pause, when you return to the marina, because it might be the middle of the night, you actually communicate with the race management team to tell them you're safely back in the marina. Then we know all our chickens are home. Boat lock. We did want last year for boat locks to be 100% complete, but about half of them came in incomplete. We've put it in the sailing instructions this time that boat logs, and all you've got to do is simply note the bits and pieces from the skids and write down the end of each lap. and your time that you sent in, etc. And if they're not 100% complete, or they've been compromised by somebody making numbers up or any other way one might compromise it, then there will be a 10% distance penalty applied to your boat. We take this one very seriously. We don't want to miscount. An app might stop working. You might be sitting in a big hole. There's lots of reasons why something gets missed. So we want to make sure that irrespective of anything else, communication, failings and everything else, that you've got a log, that you give to us, which matches up, because we've got a log, which we'll be matching, putting down for every boat that finishes a lap. So that's kind of important, that your boat log, which is rules 14 and 15, read your statements, right? Rules 14 and 15 cover that.
The boat log is what we base working out the results on. And so if the boat log's not completed or is not correct, then we can't work out your result.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
I'm
Because-
surprised to hear a year later that people hadn't, not everybody had completed it. That's a pretty basic thing to do.
You would have thought so, but about 50% of the boats had incomplete
So
logs.
did you adjust them accordingly?
We didn't have to because we had a count on virtually on them, but we want your answers,
Yeah.
not our answers. And it gives you something to do other than play tiddlywinks around the course. It's only a one sheet of paper. It's not very hard to do. It's part of the sport of the 24-hour event. Now, we are going to do radio skids at dusk and at dawn. They will be done, this is rule 19.2. We're going to do them by basically going through the boats on alphabetical order. We will call twice. This suggests what you need to tell us on those two skids is in the sailing instructions, and the boats will be called twice in alphabetical order. If we don't hear from that, we go to the end of the list and we go through the next one. Then we get to the end, we'll go back to any that missed. And if that doesn't work, we go to text. But it's the radio skids we want to do by VHF and the checking in before the race. They're the two compulsory times for the VHF. Other than that, very happy to respond at any time if you want to tell us the weather, what you're feeling out there. I think in last year's race, Jamie sent me over 100 texts. But at least it gave us something to do. The marks after dark in particular. We won't be giving exact GPS locations of the marks, but in your first round, it's your responsibility to ping them and pick them up. Brent knows approximately where he's going to put them, but they may be more than a boat width and a half out, so you pick them up on your first large round. You'll pick up Horokiwi, and on your next round you'll pick up 12. You may pass by it, but you want to get it on the first round, and that should all be before dark, so you can ping them. Now for visibility, Brent has done his best to try and improve the visibility from last year, but there's lots of reasons why visibility is not that good. We once had a mist out here on a Wednesday night race some years ago, and even the birds were coming and sitting on our boat because they had no idea which way the shore was. And a certain, I think it was Grant Reed, found himself sailing inside the swimming platform off Petone Beach with a 2.2 metre keel, and saying, I don't know whether others of you remember that night, but it was kind of interesting.
So all of the marks that we're going around at night will have LED lights on them. So there'll be 4 lights on each mark. There'll be white LED lights.
The marks, both Horokiwi and the one off the lap finish mark, which will be off the wharf, will be those big cubes, the dice cubes. And the other 2 marks, which is 19 and 12, will have one of our yellow regatta marks tied to them, which will give more height and visibility. Okay, so that's in the sailing instructions. You should see that there. So I'm not telling you anything here that's not in the sailing instructions. So don't remember the marks have to. You ping the marks so you know where they are during the night. I have put here, but I don't think it's in the sailing instructions, what my personal mobile number is, because I may not be here, but you might just decide the message is urgent enough to want to talk to myself. And so for those who, Brenda, don't think it's there, but I think we will hand it out on a piece of paper on Saturday week, so that people actually have my personal cell phone number as well. At the moment, I still have quite a lot of the boats in my phone from last year, so if any of you ring me, I will probably answer you by your boat name. So that's about the lot, but these people may have some more questions of those of you who have read them. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. You can read them in some detail, and we can answer the last lot of questions Saturday week. So anybody questions off the top of their head that they think I may not have covered in detail?
Was it basically the same as last year?
No, it's this year. The year's changed, right?
The year has changed.
But
So the courses are the same as last year. So the first course, have a look up on the screen. The first course is a lap of the harbour. If it's a northerly, we will go anti-clockwise, so Petone first. If it's a southerly, we go to leading light first. And once the race has started, the course direction does not change.
Right, you said it's 8 to 10 knots forecast?
yeah, currently 8
North
to
or
10
south?
knots, northeast and northwest
Okay.
currently, but that could well change.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a long way away.
hopefully we get it stayed northwest all race. Last year it went northeast. And
Went all together, right?
funny sort of course.
It gave a reach of virtually all the way around the course.
Yeah. So the second and subsequent laps are on the smaller course, which is going around Petone, Horikiwi, Ward Island Buoy, and back to the start-finish lap. That's to keep us away from the shipping channel at night and satisfy the harbour master that we're not going to be. There's not going to be boats in the way of the ferries.
And the harbour master will be out there on board a boat.
Do we know
One
at
of
this stage whether there's any tankers, Stuart?
We don't know at this stage. We'll let you know on the Saturday morning briefing of shipping movements.
And then like last year, boys won't be moved no matter what the wind
No,
does.
buoys will not be moved no matter what the wind does. The buoys are set in such a way that we know the exact size of the course, which is what we need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
In the case of a pause, I didn't cover how do we restart. So let's say we start on time at midday, 8 p.m. at night. We don't like to look at the wind, conditions don't look good. We might pause. So when you restart, you do not go back to the position you finished. We restart from the original start line. We can count from there. You could, of course, count if you all went back to your position and said, right, go! But we restart. So if we do pause, we restart from the starting position, which is the end of the lap position off the wall.
So we would, all zoom into the marina?
So you are required to come into the marina, and the sailing instructions says on arrival in the marina you call us and sign in that you're home.
Yeah.
And then you stay by your boats, you have a nice sleep, and with not less than 30 minutes, I think it says in the sailing instructions, we might call to restart. But practically, as soon as we saw that the conditions were going to stay worse or look like they're getting better, we'd probably give more warning than that. As a race officer, I tend to keep people informed about what's happening, what I'm seeing, and it seems to work because people get fairly comfortable that they know what I'm thinking and don't get too many surprises.
Are there spare free berths for trailer sailors?
Yes, there is.
And will we be allocated one of those on the deck?
Yes.
You need to arrange that with the marina manager.
Yeah.
Anybody, visitors or trailer yachts that require a berth, they get a free berth for 4 days, but you need to make contact with the marina manager and arrange it with him directly, not with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so talk to Alan if you require a berth. So, any other
Oh.
questions?
So for Wellington boats, do we need to come ashore here before the race, but after the race, do we need to come back ashore here, or can we just go back to Wellington?
You can go back to Wellington, but you need to make sure you deliver to us first your log. Otherwise, we can't.
Okay, and we come pick up the prizes as well.
But also the
And
prize.
I suggest that the prize giving won't be till approximately 3 p.m.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to take your boat and come back, that's fine.
Right, okay,
But
yeah.
please deliver the log for us, otherwise we can't finish
So you need the log within 30 minutes.
I think there's a time. There's an hour and a half maximum
Okay.
to deliver us the log after. I was going to say your individual finishing time, but everybody finishes at the same time, don't they?
Yes.
But of course, it'll depend where you are on the
It's
course.
the finishing
how
position
long
you need.
Yeah,
you'll be
but
here.
if you can't get back in an hour and a half, then get yourself a new set of oars. Yes.
So if we're coming back in here from Wellington, is there a visitor's berth that we can use then?
Yeah,
You
Just-
go
just-
you
just
go
for-
to the berth that was allocated to you.
Okay, even just for a few hours, we still need to
Yeah.
get one allocated.
John.
Uh, Might you just take a photograph of my log and text it through to you,
Yes, you can do that.
so I don't need to come back here at all, do I?
No,
That's a good idea. There you go.
that's right. Yes.
Are those marks the ones that are already placed in the harbour, or will they be placed for the race?
Mark 19 and 12 are in the harbour. The start mark goes up and down each day, or the one off the wharf, and the one at Hanakiwi will be placed on the Friday afternoon. So it's not a normal mark, but the two red ones you see are standard marks that are in there.
And also the Naranga Buoy, and also the Black Pole at Evans Bay, obviously.
Yeah, and the leading light.
And leading light. There's a few people had a go at hitting leading light, but nobody's managed to get it down yet.
And we can't get hold of the latitude and longitude of those markers at all, can we?
Well, they're not down yet, but Brent can probably give you a slip of paper saying where they were, but it's far more important that when you go around them, you ping them and put them in the GPS, because he may give you porkies. So you see the other course, the only other marks, number 1 leading light and shoal pile and Naranga. Naranga, of course, is a mark that's down, and of course you can just see there mark 12, which is you're going to use on the second lap, just on the other side of Ward Island. It was quite interesting last year. Somebody said, how accurate are the trackers? And there was a port starboard incident out there, which was very, very obvious to us watching it on the screen. And we said, oh, I wonder if it'll be a call. And sure enough, within a couple of minutes, Jeff Thorne was called to rectify his who did he do port starboard with? Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he did. With Teo, yes.
And he was very gracious. He was going to do a 360.
That's right.
And then the race officer said, sorry, it's got to be a 720.
720. Okay, any more questions? If not, read these instructions. Teo's read them 48 times. I've read them 3 times. Brent's read them 50 times. And every time we read them, we find something else. But hopefully we've pretty well got it all now.
Is the version on the website the same as the one we've got here?
It is now.
Yep.
The version that was on the website is not. In fact, somebody mentioned to me before that the original version on the website for trailer yachts in category B. Was that correct? Or never?
That's what I read.
That's what you read. Yeah, it's category C. Isn't it? So Brent will make sure the correct instructions.
Yeah, so the one on the website at the moment is just the notice of race. The sailing
That's
instructions
right, sailing
will go up
instructions,
tonight.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yep.
Yes, so it's only an NOR that's on the instructions. I hope it's all going to be a great race, and we look forward to this being a great event for Wellington's future.
So has anyone here not seen me about their tracker on their phone? I need to sort that this evening, so before you go.
Molly,
Are you planning to practice using the trackers on the Friday night race?
There won't be.
There won't be a Friday night race. Are you meaning this Friday?
This coming Friday?
Yeah, we could sort something this coming Friday.
I would like
Yeah,
to
yeah.
try it.
Yep.
I'd really like to try it.
So you're dropping the Friday night so we can all go to Laura Becker?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. But
Yes.
this coming Friday there is a race.
Yes.
So I'll load up the Larry Bay boats.
we did airlift. We did see them sailing home last Saturday night. They were having a lovely sail. Yeah, so we're pretty confident. They look pretty much the same as they did last year. Each boat sort of pops along, and you can see a little trail behind it, the direction it's going. You can see the speed on it. It looked much the same to us as it did last year. We just hope that the tracker is more reliable than the yacht trackers.
So, Ray, will we not be carrying a separate device? Our phones will be the tracker.
Your phones will be the tracker, but you need a second phone, which
Yeah.
will to give us for the
But
10.
unlike last year, we won't have the,
No.
the tracking device.
No, you won't have the
anymore.
box.
No, but that needs to be charged, kept charged. So it's very important that that is kept charged.
Will it be possible for us to observe on our phones where other boats are?
If you're prepared to pay for the data on your phone, you can turn you can select the site. Brent will give you the link. So yes, during the whole race, if you want to have your laptops, etc., going,
Yep.
by all means.
Yeah, there'll be a link on there'll be a link to the race on our Facebook page, and possibly a link on the website as well, so that family and
If we don't
friends
have
can
Facebook,
On the website.
website as well.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to connect to. Brent has to set up a race. If you go in now, you won't necessarily see anything, but if once you set up a race and a countdown, then the boats with their trackers on start to appear.
What time will you have it on Friday night?
Probably sometime Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're going out for a night sail on Friday night just for a practice run, so should we turn it on?
Yep.
Yep.
8 o'clock to about 10.
Yeah, when you're looking at the race from the link, it's what's happening live, and it's not until the end of the race that you can then go back and have a look at the whole race.
Sure.
So if you were to log in during the middle of the race, you'll see a snapshot of what's happening right now. It's 20 seconds behind.
But it's not constantly updating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's updating every 5 seconds, but it's 20 seconds behind.
Yeah.
It's great for family and friends at home to see where everybody is. They can click on the link and see where the boats are in the race. It will show the name of the boat, the speed, and the position.
Well, you can see where you are.
You can
It
see
doesn't
where
give a
it doesn't-
it doesn't give a GPS position, but you can see exactly where you are and the other boats around you, unless you turn the others off. You can actually turn everything off except yourself and just enjoy watching yourself if you want to.
Selfie, a selfie.
Yes, a selfie.
Boat selfie.
So
Okay,
you
that's-
might say, why don't we just use what we're seeing? Well, we've got no guarantee that your trackers are actually going to work. Us tracking you is just a check against what you're writing in your log. This is your race, not ours.
Yeah, the log is what we're going to be using for results. So, We've learnt from last year that things can happen with the trackers, and the trackers, we just can't rely on them to record a result.
We'll probably have the right information on our log sheet, because even if we don't see you, you're going to call us within 10 minutes of round, which is what you're required to do in the sewing instructions. Call us or text us and say, I rounded so and so at such an. I rounded the my lap 7 at 18:25, and we'll say, gotcha. So you'll know, we'll know. So, but it's your log that's the important one. Okay. How's that? Going to be fun?
Yeah.
Hope so.
One last thing. So on the Friday before, and as some of you have already alluded to, we will have a guest speaker here. Her name is Laura Dekker. And you may recall perhaps a few years ago, Laura fought a battle with the Dutch Child Protection authorities because she was only 13 and she wanted to sail around the world single-handed. And the Dutch Child Protection Authority said, no, you cannot do that. You are not psychologically well enough equipped to handle loneliness, 10-foot waves and all of that sort of thing. Laura said, yes, I can do that. And she went through the courts 6 times. And 6 times she was held back and they said, no, you cannot go. She was actually taken out of her parental care and into what in New Zealand we would call SIFs, and but finally at the age of 14 she was allowed to go. She started her voyage in Gibraltar, which is at the southern tip of Spain, and 2 years later she finished her circumnavigation in St. Martin in the Caribbean. She will be here on Friday the 2nd of March, so that's the eve before the race. You're all welcome to be here. You can bring your family. It will be a really inspiring story that she has to tell. She will bring her books along. You can buy her book, only $25, and she will write a little personal message in it for you. So make sure that you come here on time. We start at 7 o'clock. I think it was 7 o'clock that I said in the newsletter. So be here. She will be really keen to meet you, and she has a great story to tell. All right.
How many boats have we got?
Well, so far we've got 15, and with 9 days to go. So we'll do a similar thing as last year.
Okay.
And you'll get a list wherever Sally is. Oh, she's not here today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope you're all going to enjoy it as much as we're going to do watching you.
Thank you.
Thank you.